At sundown in South Texas, Ethan, an animal transport driver for a wildlife rehab, noticed a small gray shape running behind his pickup. He almost laughed, ready to film a cute moment, until it got closer. It was a baby elephant, exhausted, wide-eyed, and strangely unafraid, holding tight to his tailgate like it was begging not to be left. Then an ATV engine growled somewhere in the brush, and Ethan realized this calf wasn't chasing a truck for fun. It was running from something. Ethan Carter kept the pickup steady on the rutted ranch road, the kind that shook bolts loose, and patience with it. The sun sagged behind mesquite and scrub oak, turning the dust in his mirrors into copper. After 12 hours hauling supplies for Rio Mesa Wildlife Rehab, all he wanted was the gate light, a cold bottle of water, and silence. The day still buzzed in his bones. In the passenger seat, Maya Brooks scrolled a checklist on her tablet, vet tech calm, hair pinned up, eyes tired, but sharp. She read off inventory: IV fluids, bandage rolls, tranquilizer kits sealed and tagged, syringes counted twice. Ethan answered with little hums, saving his voice for the road and the radio, saving his focus for deer that loved to dart late. A burst of static snapped through the cab. Dispatch tried to reach him, then vanished into dead air. Out here, service came, and went like a fickle wind. Ethan tapped the mic anyway, habit more than hope, and kept rolling. The tires hissed over dry caliche as evening pulled the land into longer, stranger shadows across the hood. Even the birds seemed to settle. Maya angled her phone toward the windshield, capturing the sunset for a quick post. South Texas looking like a movie again. Ethan smirked without looking. He'd spent enough years moving animals between sanctuaries to know the landscape always looked peaceful, right before it wasn't. He eased around a washout, the truck tilting, the cargo clinking softly behind them like glass. Something flickered in the rear view, small, gray, and stubborn. At first, Ethan thought it was a feral hog cutting across the track, then an antelope calf spooking itself for no reason. The shape stayed centered behind the tailgate, dust puffing with each step, as if it had picked the pickup as a leader and refused to be left behind. It wasn't sprinting. It was clinging. Maya leaned forward, squinting. "Wait, is that—" She lifted her phone, already smiling, like she'd found the clip that would pay for dinner. Ethan laughed under his breath, the kind that meant harmless trouble. He slowed a touch, letting the chaser come closer, expecting it to peel off into the brush any second the way wildlife usually did. That grin lasted exactly one heartbeat. But the closer it got, the stranger it felt. The gait wasn't playful. It was desperate, too steady, too committed, like the animal couldn't afford to stop. Ethan's grip tightened on the wheel. He checked his side, mirror, then the rear again, and his stomach dipped when the headlights caught a round ear, a swinging trunk, and a body far too small to be this determined. A baby elephant. Here, of all places. Ethan's mind raced through the map. No wild herds in this county, not unless something had gone terribly wrong. He braked gently, gravel crunching, and the pickup rolled to a stop. The little elephant kept coming anyway, closing the distance as if stopping was permission, not a warning, as if the truck had called it. It reached the tailgate, breath fluttering, ribs working hard beneath dust-caked skin. Its eyes were huge and wet, not panicked, not angry, just locked onto the truck like it recognized it. Maya's smile vanished. She whispered, "He's not afraid." Ethan felt the hair rise on his arms, because fear would have made sense. This did not. The calf's chest shook with every inhale. Ethan stepped out, boots sinking slightly in loose sand. The air smelled of heat fading and sage crushed under tires. The calf circled the pickup, trunk tapping the bumper, the hitch, then Ethan's pant leg like it was taking attendance. Maya stayed close, hands open, voice soft, already scanning for tracks, fence gaps, and fresh drag marks that shouldn't have been there. "Elephant calves don't travel alone," Maya said, more to steady herself than to inform him. She crouched and watched the calf's legs tremble. Dark smudges ringed its eyes, and there was a raw scrape along the edge of one ear, rubbed nearly bare. Ethan felt the old rule of his work press down on him. Don't improvise with wildlife. Don't become the story on the news. A thin yip carried from the brush, then another. Coyotes waking up for their night shift. The calf flinched and pressed behind the truck, like the tailgate was a wall. Ethan glanced at the horizon where the last light was bleeding out. He tried the radio again. Only static answered, and the quiet that followed felt crowded, like unseen eyes were already measuring distance. Maya met his eyes. No lecture, no drama, just the look that said, "If you drive off, it dies." Ethan swallowed, staring at the small body tucked into the truck's shadow. "Okay," he said. Barely audible? He opened the driver's door, not to leave, but to move. As the engine turned over, the calf fell in behind the pickup again, lining up perfectly, ready to run, trusting the motor like a promise. Ethan kept the pickup crawling forward, barely faster than a man could walk, as if the road itself might crack if he hurried. In the rear view, the calf stayed tucked behind the tailgate, a small gray shadow in the dust. The engine's low rumble seemed to soothe it, like a lullaby made of gasoline and steel. Maya twisted in her seat, watching through the back window until her neck ached. "He's pacing off the sound," she murmured. "More observation than guess." She had seen orphaned fawns do it, even injured coyotes, cling to whatever, moved, because stillness felt like death. Ethan didn't answer. His jaw was tight, eyes flicking between the road and that stubborn shape. The land around them looked calm, but it was the kind of calm that belonged to predators. Mesquite cast long black bars across the track, and the brush on either side seemed to breathe when the wind shifted. Ethan kept the headlights off for now, letting the last daylight guide them. He didn't want to announce themselves to anything listening. He tried the radio again, pushing the mic button until his thumb went numb. "Rio Mesa, this is Carter. I have an animal on me, requesting contact." Static swallowed his words. The silence that followed felt personal, like the county itself was refusing to witness what was happening. Maya reached over and squeezed the dash, as if holding the truck together. The calf stumbled once, just a little slip in the sand, then recovered and kept running. Ethan's chest tightened anyway. He eased off the gas and coasted, letting the calf close the gap. When it caught up, it lifted its trunk toward the bumper like it was checking in, then fell back into place, eyes fixed forward, faithful as a dog. Maya dug into the cooler, found an old bottle of water, and cracked the cap. "We can't just drag him 5 miles without a sip," she said. Ethan nodded and pulled over where the brush opened enough to see. The pickup stopped, and the calf stopped too, almost perfectly, like it was obeying the truck more than the humans. Outside, the air had cooled by a single degree, but it felt like relief. Maya crouched low, poured water into the cap, and held it out. The calf leaned in, trunk trembling, and drank like it had been waiting for permission. Its eyes never left the pickup. Ethan watched the little body shiver with each swallow and felt something in him loosen and ache. Then Maya noticed the ear again. Up close, the scrape wasn't just a scrape. It looked like something had been torn. Away, skin rubbed raw around a small, clean circle, the kind you'd see where a tag used to sit. She didn't say it at first. She just looked at Ethan, and he read the thought in her face. This calf belonged to someone. A sound rolled across the brush. An ATV engine, far off, but moving. Ethan froze mid-breath. Out here, you didn't hear four-wheelers at dusk unless somebody had business they didn't want in daylight. He killed the pickup's engine without thinking. The sudden quiet made the calf shuffle closer, pressing its shoulder to the bumper as if the truck was shelter. The ATV noise faded, then returned, closer, then veered away again, like it was searching. Maya's fingers tightened around the bottle cap until her knuckles went pale. Ethan stood between the brush and the calf, one hand resting on the tailgate, the other on the radio mic he couldn't use. For a few long seconds the world was only wind, dust, and that distant motor hunting for something. When the sound finally drifted off, Ethan exhaled slowly and restarted the pickup. The calf flinched at the ignition, then relaxed, stepping right back into its spot as if the engine had stitched the night back together. Ethan kept the speed low, but the urgency in his ribs grew heavier with every yard. Darkness wasn't coming. It was already arriving. Maya checked their remaining distance on the map, the blue dot inching along like a joke. 4.5 miles, she said, voice steady on purpose. Ethan glanced in the mirror and saw the calf's legs shaking harder now, the stride still determined, but thinner, frayed at the edges. Cute had vanished completely. What remained was need. A pickup came the other way, an old ranch truck with a single working headlight. It slowed, the driver leaning out, curiosity bright in the glare. Ethan raised a hand, a warning, and the rancher's eyes widened when he saw the calf. The man mouthed something, Lord have mercy, then drove on without asking. Questions, like he knew questions could get you hurt. Ethan kept going, the road narrowing, brush tightening in. Behind him the calf stayed locked to the tailgate, as if it believed the truck could outrun fate itself. Maya turned back one more time and whispered, almost like a prayer, "Just keep running, sweetheart." The calf didn't answer, of course, but it ran, and the sound of its feet in the dust followed them like a promise Ethan was terrified to break. Ethan's hands stayed steady on the wheel, but his mind didn't. Every rule he'd learned in this job pressed against the other. Don't improvise, don't take risks, don't let emotion drive the route. Yet in the mirror, the calf's legs kept shaking like they were made of reeds, and Ethan knew the cold truth. Out here, rules didn't keep a baby alive. People did. Maya watched the calf the way nurses watch a failing monitor, catching changes before they became disasters. The animal's ears drooped lower now, and its breathing came in quick, shallow pulls that fogged the faint evening chill. Still, it held its line behind the tailgate with a focus that felt almost human, like it had decided this truck was the last safe thing left on Earth. Ethan slowed again, then slowed some more, until the pickup was barely rolling. The tires crunched soft gravel, and the brush creaked as if the whole county was leaning closer to listen. He glanced at the fuel gauge and did the math automatically, the way you do when you're scared. Enough gas, enough water, enough time. Time was the one thing they didn't have. The road dipped through a shallow wash, then rose onto a narrow ridge of packed caliche. To the right, a dry cattle pond lay like cracked pottery. To the left, mesquite thorns grabbed at the truck's paint. Ethan kept the headlights off, following the last violet smear of sky. He didn't want to be a beacon for anything with bad intentions, two-legged or four. Maya leaned toward the window, listening. The coyotes had gone quiet, which was never comforting. Silence in the brush could mean a cat nearby, watching and choosing. She pulled a small flashlight from the glove box, but didn't turn it on. "If we see eyes," she whispered, "don't stop. Just keep the calf moving." Ethan nodded without looking at her. He'd transported injured wolves, sedated bears, even a cougar once that stared through steel bars like it could see your childhood. None of that had prepared him for this. An animal too young to understand death, running like it already knew what death looked like. He swallowed and tried the radio again, softer this time. "Rio Mesa, please." Static, then a single broken syllable, maybe his own voice echoing back. Maya set the mic down, like it had betrayed them. She turned in her seat, reached into the back, and pulled out a reflective safety vest. "If we have to stop again," she said, "I want the calf to see us, not the dark." Ethan hated how practical fear made her. The calf stumbled twice in a row, each slip followed by a stubborn recovery that made Ethan's chest burn. He eased to the shoulder and stopped, rolling the pickup into a patch of open sand so they could see a wide circle around them. The calf reached the tailgate, leaned against it, and stayed upright only because the metal held it. Maya slid out slowly, moving like she was approaching a skittish horse. She poured water into the cap again, held it low. The calf drank, then lifted its trunk and touched her wrist, gentle, almost polite. Maya blinked hard and looked away, as if refusing to cry would keep the world stable. "Thank you," she whispered, and Ethan heard it anyway. That's when the ATV sound came back, Closer this time, not wandering, more certain. A thin beam of light flickered through the brush like someone testing the dark. Ethan's heart knocked against his ribs. He motioned Maya back to the cab with two sharp fingers. The calf turned its head, ears twitching, and pressed tighter against the pickup as if it understood that engines could mean danger too. Ethan killed the pickup's engine again, then thought better of it, and turned it back on. Just a low idle, not loud, not silent. He didn't want to lose the calf's trust in the sudden quiet. Maya climbed in, door shutting with a careful click. Both of them stared forward, breathing shallow, while the light in the brush drifted, paused, drifted again. A voice carried, muffled, male, impatient. Another voice answered, quieter. They were too far to make out words, but the tone was enough. Not ranchers, not hikers. Ethan's eyes went to the rear view, and he saw the calf's gaze fixed on the darkness, like it had seen this kind of light before, like it remembered. Maya's hand found Ethan's forearm. Drive, she said, not fast, not loud, just move. Ethan put the pickup in gear and rolled forward, smooth as he could manage, pulling away from the shadow of those voices. The calf fell in behind instantly, almost relieved, as if motion was the only thing keeping fear from catching up. They crested a small rise, and for a heartbeat the land opened, an empty stretch of pale road cutting through black brush. In the far distance, a faint glow hovered low on the horizon. Rio Mesa's security lights, still miles away but finally visible. Maya exhaled like she'd been holding her breath for hours. Ethan didn't let himself feel hope yet. He kept the pickup crawling toward that glow, one eye on the road, one eye on the mirror, and one ear straining for engines behind them. The calf's feet kept tapping out a steady, frantic rhythm in the dust. And Ethan realized something that made his throat tighten. The calf wasn't chasing the truck anymore. It was chasing the idea that the truck meant family, and it couldn't survive losing that twice. The glow on the horizon grew steadier, but the road got meaner. Ethan guided the pickup through a stretch of dried creek bed where the stones were sharp enough to bite rubber. The truck jolted and rattled, and he winced for the calf behind him. Every bump that hit the tires also hit those little legs, still running on stubbornness and thin air. Maya kept her eyes on the back window, counting breaths like a metronome. The calf's chest rose fast, fell fast, and the rhythm didn't settle even when they slowed. Its ears hung low now, dust clinging to the folds, like old ash. When it blinked, the lids stayed closed a fraction too long, the way exhausted people do when sleep tries to steal them upright. Ethan stopped again in a patch of open ground, safer than the brush. "We're losing him," Maya said quietly, and the words landed like a weight on the cab. Ethan climbed out and walked to the tailgate, keeping his movement slow. The calf leaned into the metal as if it had been holding itself up with sheer will, and finally found something that wouldn't move away. Maya stepped, out with the cooler and the water, but she also brought something else. 2 electrolyte packets, meant for dehydrated dogs in transport. "It's not ideal," she said, "but it's better than plain water." Ethan didn't argue. He watched her tear the packet with her teeth, mix it in the bottle, and pour a little into the cap, like communion. The calf drank greedily, trunk working in short, shaky pulls. A little of the liquid spilled down its chin, darkening the dust on its skin into muddy streaks. Then, as if the drink unlocked something, it lifted its trunk and pressed it to Ethan's hand. Warm, damp, trembling. Ethan felt the touch travel up his arm and lodge somewhere behind his ribs. It wasn't cute anymore. It was a plea. A low growl rolled out of the brush to their right. Deep, not coyotes. Maya froze. Ethan turned his head slowly and saw nothing, which was worse. The wind shifted, carrying a musky scent that didn't belong to cattle or deer. Mountain lion. Close. Enough that Ethan could feel the night tightening around them like a fist. "Back in," he breathed. Maya moved first. Careful, controlled, like panic was a luxury she refused to afford. Ethan stayed 1 second longer, hands still on the tailgate, and guided the calf toward the rear of the truck with a gentle push of his palm. The calf followed, trusting him without understanding why trust mattered. Then, Ethan climbed in and shut the door. He started forward again, slower than before, and kept the headlights low. The calf fell in behind, but its stride had changed. The steps were uneven now, a faint hitch in the back leg that hadn't been there earlier. Maya watched it and whispered, "Come on, baby," as if the words could stitch muscle back onto bone. The road narrowed where the brush grew thick, and Ethan felt the urge to speed up just to get through it. He didn't. Speed would break the calf. He kept the truck at a crawl, forcing patience, forcing calm, even as his nerves flared. Ahead, the path dipped into a shallow gully cut by rain, 2 feet down, slick sand and scattered rocks. The calf reached the gully a moment after the pickup crossed. Ethan watched in the mirror as it misjudged the edge, its front feet sliding, its small body tipping forward. For a second it windmilled, trunk flailing, trying to catch balance like a child on ice. Then it tumbled down, landing hard on its side with a dull thud that made Maya gasp out loud. Ethan slammed the brakes and jumped out before the truck fully stopped. He ran back, boots slipping in loose sand, heart pounding so hard he could hear it. The calf lay still at the bottom of the gully, chest moving fast but shallow. Its eyes were open, glassy, fixed on the pickup as if it needed to confirm it hadn't been abandoned. Maya scrambled down too, knees dirty, hands hovering until she found a safe place to touch. "Breathe," she said to the calf, and maybe to herself. Ethan crouched beside the little flank, feeling warmth, feeling life, and felt relief hit him so sharply it almost hurt. No broken limb he could see, but the trembling was worse now, shaking with effort, not fear. They had seconds, maybe minutes, before something in the dark decided a fallen calf was an invitation. Ethan looked up at the brush line and imagined yellow eyes. He opened the tailgate, pulled out a toe strap, and looped it low, never around the neck, never where it could choke. Maya guided the calf's head gently, keeping it from thrashing, keeping it calm. "Easy, buddy," Ethan murmured, voice rough. He braced his boots and pulled, and the calf pushed with what strength it had left. Sand crumbled under its feet. It slid back once, then twice, then finally found purchase on a rock and hauled itself up with a grunt that sounded too adult for such a young body. When it reached the top, it didn't collapse. It shook dust from its hide and stepped behind the truck again. Maya stared at it like she couldn't decide whether to cry or laugh. Ethan swallowed hard, blinking fast. The calf's determination felt unnatural, almost frightening in its purity. He climbed back into the cab, hands trembling now, and put the truck in gear. In the mirror, the calf resumed its place, running on something deeper than strength. As the pickup rolled forward, the Rio Mesa lights grew brighter, closer, no longer a rumor on the horizon. Maya let out a breath that sounded like surrender. Ethan didn't speak. He just kept the truck moving, one careful yard at a time, while behind them a baby elephant ran through the dark like it was chasing the last thread of safety left in the world. The last mile felt longer than the first 4 combined. Ethan could see Rio Mesa's perimeter lights now, white points hanging in the dark like steady stars, but the road between them was still a maze of brush and shadow. He turned the headlights on low, careful not to blind the calf or advertise to the wrong eyes. The beams carved a narrow tunnel through the night. Maya kept her voice soft, almost rhythmic, as if she were talking someone through labor. "You're doing good. You're right there. Keep your feet under you." The calf's ears flicked at her sound, but its eyes stayed locked on the tailgate, on the shape of the truck that had become its moving shelter. Its breathing was loud enough to hear, even through glass. Ethan stopped every few 100 yards, not for comfort, but for survival. Each time the truck rolled to a halt, the calf slowed, wobbled, and leaned against the metal as if the tailgate could hold up the whole world. Maya stepped out with a cap of water, offering sips that barely seemed like anything. The calf drank anyway, as if accepting the ritual meant it would keep going. Somewhere off to the right, the brush snapped. Not a twig, something heavier. Ethan froze with the door half open. The calf stiffened, trunk lifting, tasting the air. A low, rough exhale drifted across the road, and Ethan saw a flash of movement at the edge of the light, just a shadow slipping between mesquite trunks, pacing them. Mountain lion, close and patient. "Don't run," Maya breathed, and Ethan understood what she meant. If he sped up, the calf would fail. If he stopped, the calf would be taken. He climbed back in, started rolling again, steady and slow, forcing the predator to choose between effort and opportunity. In the mirror, the calf kept moving, legs trembling like thin cables under too much weight. Then the ATV engine came back, this time behind them, faint but real. A flicker of light bounced off the brush, not as random as before. Ethan's stomach tightened. 2 threats now, one with claws, one with intentions. He checked the mirror again and caught the calf's eyes reflecting back, wide and fixed, as if it recognized that sound the way people recognize a nightmare. Maya leaned forward, scanning the road for a place to hide, but the brush was tight and thorny. Ethan couldn't risk turning off the track without bogging the pickup down. He kept moving, heart hammering, refusing to let fear make decisions. The Rio Mesa lights looked close enough to touch, and still impossibly far, like a promise testing his patience. A dark shape appeared ahead, an old cattle guard crossing the road, steel bars over a shallow pit. Ethan slowed to a crawl, worrying about the calf's hooves on the metal. The calf reached it, hesitated for the first time, then stepped forward. The bars clanged softly under its weight. It almost slipped, caught itself, and made it across, barely. On the far side of the cattle guard, the calf's strength finally cracked. Its front legs buckled, and it dropped to its knees, chest heaving. For a terrifying second, it didn't move. Maya was out of the truck before Ethan could speak, kneeling beside it, hands on its shoulder, whispering steady words into its ear. The calf's eyes stayed open, glassy but present. Ethan grabbed the last bottle from the cooler and poured water into the calf with shaking hands. The calf drank, then tried to rise and failed, sagging back down with a small sound that wasn't quite a cry, not quite a breath. Ethan felt panic flash hot in his throat. He looked toward the perimeter lights and realized they were still outside the gate, still outside help. He did the only thing he could think of. He pulled off his jacket, spread it over the calf's back like a thin blanket, and stood between the calf and the brush with the truck's headlights behind him. Maya turned her phone flashlight on at last, sweeping it in slow arcs. The light felt fragile against the dark, but it was better than surrender. The ATV sound grew louder for a few seconds, then drifted away again, as if whoever was out there didn't want to come too close to the glow of Rio Mesa. A shape moved in the brush, then another. Hard to tell if it was the cat or the men. Ethan kept his stance wide, breathing through his nose, forcing himself to look calm, even as his pulse tried to leap out of his skin. Maya leaned close to Ethan without taking her eyes off the calf. "If he can't stand, we're stuck," she whispered. Ethan nodded, mind racing through impossible options. He couldn't lift a calf that size alone, and the bed of the pickup wasn't safe anyway. But he could give it one more reason to try. He started the engine again, letting it idle low, warm sound filling the air. The calf's ears twitched. Its trunk lifted, searching, and its eyes locked on the tailgate, like a compass finding north. Slowly, shaking, it pushed up onto its front legs. Maya steadied its shoulder, just enough to keep it from collapsing. Then it rose, wobbling, swaying, but upright. Ethan felt something in his chest break and mend at the same time. "Okay," Maya said, voice thick. "Okay, sweetheart. One more." Ethan eased the pickup forward, inches at first, and the calf followed, step by step, like a child, learning to walk again. Rio Mesa's gate lights grew brighter with every shaky stride, and Ethan understood, with a cold clarity, that whatever was chasing them in the dark, claws or men, this calf was chasing something else entirely. The sound of a truck that meant it hadn't been left behind. The pickup rolled forward like it was carrying glass. Ethan kept the speed so low the engine barely worked, just a steady purr in the dark. In the mirror, the calf stayed close, wobbling but moving, dust rising in weak little bursts. Rio Mesa's lights were no longer distant stars. They were real, bright, and waiting. Maya watched the calf's shoulders rise and fall, counting breaths under her own. The animal's steps had lost their spring, replaced by a careful shuffle, like each hoof had to ask permission from tired bones. Still, it didn't drift left or right. It stayed centered behind the tailgate, as if the truck had drawn an invisible line it refused to cross. Ethan glanced at the perimeter fence ahead, a long ribbon of chain link that kept trouble out and kept hope in. He saw the gatehouse shape, the small security camera blinking red. He pressed the radio again, not expecting mercy from static. "Rio Mesa, this is Carter. I'm at the south approach. I need a response team, now." For a moment, nothing answered. Then a crackle, a half word, a voice trying to find him through the dead zones. Ethan leaned closer to the mic like proximity could help. "Repeat," he said. The speaker hissed, then finally, "Carter. You say elephant?" Maya's eyes widened. Ethan swallowed. "Yes, calf, barely standing." The gate lights brightened as motion sensors caught them. Ethan felt relief hit like a warm wave, then fear right behind it. Bright light could also be a signal to anyone watching from the brush. He checked the mirror again and saw the calf blink hard, adjusting, but it didn't stop. It kept following the light the way moths do, like it believed. Illumination meant safety. Maya held her phone up, recording now. Not for social media, not for views, but because evidence mattered. If someone had done this, if the calf belonged to a program, proof could save another animal later. Her hands shook anyway. She framed Ethan's taillights, the calf's unsteady body, the fence ahead, and the night swallowing everything else. They crossed a final stretch of open ground, where the brush fell back. Ethan felt exposed, like a man walking across a lit stage. The ATV engine returned, faint but closer than before, and a white beam flashed between mesquite trunks far behind them. Maya's throat tightened. "They're still out there," she whispered. Ethan didn't answer. He just kept moving. A shape moved along the fence line ahead, human. A security guard stepping out of the gatehouse with a flashlight. The guard aimed the light toward the pickup, then froze when it swept the road behind it. The beam caught the calf's face for a second, and the guard's posture changed instantly, from casual to urgent. He lifted his radio and started talking fast. Ethan pulled up near the gate, careful not to block it. The calf reached the tailgate and stopped, leaning in hard as if the last few yards had cost everything it had left. Maya jumped out and held a hand near its shoulder, not touching yet, just offering presence. The calf's trunk lifted weakly and brushed the air near her wrist, searching for something to hold on to. The guard approached, eyes wide, voice low. "Where'd you get this?" Ethan shook his head. "It got us," he said, and the words sounded strange, even to him. The guard glanced over his shoulder toward the brush, then back at the calf. "You got company?" he asked. Ethan nodded once. "We heard an ATV, more than once." The guard raised his radio again, speaking in quick bursts. "Send Dr. Hayes. Bring fluids and a stretcher. Also, call Hank. Now." Hearing names made it feel real in a different way, like the story was leaving Ethan's hands and entering a system built for this. Maya exhaled slowly, the first full breath she'd taken in miles, then looked at the calf and saw it swaying. Ethan started the pickup again, just idling, letting the engine vibration steady the moment. The calf's ears twitched at the sound, like it was grabbing onto a familiar song. Maya poured one last cap of water, and the calf drank with smaller, weaker pulls. Its eyes stayed open, but the shine in them had changed. Less fire, more fog, like a lamp running out of oil. From inside the fence, footsteps hurried over gravel. A door slammed, another radio crackled. Ethan watched the calf's knees tremble, and felt his chest tighten with dread. They were so close, closer than close. But exhaustion doesn't care about gates or lights. It only cares about limits, and the calf was brushing its limit, like a match to dry grass. Maya leaned toward Ethan's open window, her voice barely. above the engine. "When they come out," she said, "let them take over. Don't fight it. Don't make it about us." Ethan nodded, staring at the small body pressed to his truck as if it could absorb strength through metal. Beyond the gatehouse, the rehab lights glowed steady, ready, waiting, just as the calf swayed again, slower this time, like the night was finally pulling it down. The gate swung wider with a groan of metal, and bright floodlights spilled across the road like daylight forced into the night. Ethan stepped out, blinking against the glare, and saw two staff members jogging toward them with a rolling cart. Behind them came Dr. Lauren Hayes, short stride, long focus, her hair pulled back, her face already reading the calf like a chart. The calf stood in the white light like a statue that had started to melt. Its legs trembled under the weight of its own body, and its chest pumped fast, shallow air. Maya stayed close, palm hovering near its shoulder, careful not to startle it. Ethan watched the calf's eyes search the truck, then flick to the humans in scrubs, as if trying to decide if this new scene was safe. Dr. Hayes knelt immediately, speaking in a calm, older voice that carried authority without sharp edges. "Hey there," she said softly, as if greeting a frightened child. She checked the calf's gums, its eyes, the angle of its ears. "Severely dehydrated," she murmured to her team, "and exhausted to the edge. We move slow. We keep it calm." A second vehicle pulled up inside the fence, an old Ranger truck with a spotlight on top. Hank stepped out, broad-shouldered, gray at the temples, the kind of man who didn't waste words. He walked straight to the calf's left side, took one look at the raw scrape near its ear, and his expression tightened. "That's a removal wound," he said. "Tag or chip. Somebody tore something out." Ethan felt his stomach drop. He'd been afraid of that thought since Maya first pointed at the ear, but hearing it out loud made it solid. Maya lifted her phone, capturing Hank's words, then lowered it again as if filming suddenly felt disrespectful. The calf swayed, and Dr. Hayes's hand moved to steady its chest. Gentle pressure, gentle control. They slid a padded stretcher closer, 4 staff members moving like they'd practiced this in their sleep. The calf watched them with wide eyes, and for a heartbeat it seemed like it might bolt. One last frantic run into darkness. Ethan took a step forward instinctively, voice low. "Easy," he whispered. "You're okay." The calf's trunk lifted toward him, trembling. Dr. Hayes glanced up, catching the interaction. "It's bonded to the vehicle," she said quietly, not accusing, just naming what she saw. "Probably the sound, the vibration. Don't shut the engine off yet." Ethan hurried back to the cab and let the pickup idle, the motor steadying the air like a heartbeat they could all share. The calf's knees bent, its body sank an inch, then held. Maya moved in closer, placing 2 fingers gently against its shoulder, the way you'd touch a skittish horse, light enough to reassure, not enough to restrain. "Stay with us," she whispered. The calf blinked slowly, eyes glassy now, and Ethan felt panic rise hot in his throat. Then it happened. The front legs slid forward, the rear legs buckled, and the calf folded toward the ground as if its body had finally run out of arguments. Ethan lunged without thinking, but he was too far. Dr. Hayes and Hank were closer, hands bracing the fall, guiding the calf down so it didn't slam its head. Dust puffed under its cheek in the harsh light. For a moment, everything went quiet except the engine and the calf's rapid breathing. Its eyes stayed open, fixed on Ethan's truck, and there was something unsettlingly calm in that stare, like relief. Maya knelt beside its head, palm against the warm skin behind its eye. Ethan swallowed, hard, realizing the calf wasn't giving up. It was letting go because it trusted the ground would be safe here. "On 3, Dr. Hayes said. The team slid the stretcher into position with practiced care, lifting the calf in a slow, coordinated rise. The calf didn't fight. It didn't thrash. It just breathed and watched, trunk twitching faintly as if trying to hold on to something invisible. Ethan stood frozen, hands useless at his sides, feeling like he'd brought a storm to their doorstep. Hank stepped closer to Ethan, voice low. "You see anyone out there?" Ethan nodded toward the brush line beyond the floodlights. A TV. A couple times. Voices. Hank's jaw tightened. Then we're not just dealing with a lost calf, he said. We're dealing with people. The words chilled Ethan more than the night air ever could. As they wheeled the stretcher toward the medical building, the calf's trunk reached outward once, searching. Maya walked beside it, letting the tip of that trunk brush her sleeve. Ethan followed a step behind, eyes on the scrape near the ear, the place where something had been torn away. Cute had died miles back. What remained was a question that tasted like rust in his mouth. At the entrance, Dr. Hayes paused and looked over her shoulder at Ethan. "You did the right thing," she said, quiet and firm. But Ethan couldn't feel pride. He could only feel the weight of the calf's trust, and the fear of what that trust might reveal when the lights inside showed the full story. He watched the doors close behind them, and in the sudden absence, the night outside felt wide again. Wide enough for secrets to hide. Inside the clinic, the air changed. Cooler, cleaner, lit by hard fluorescent light that made every bruise tell the truth. The calf lay on its side, still breathing fast, eyes tracking movement like it didn't want to lose sight of the humans who had replaced the truck's shadow. Ethan hovered near the doorway, quiet, as a man in church. Dr. Hayes worked with steady hands, setting an IV line and checking the calf's heart with a stethoscope that looked too small for the job. Maya held the fluid bag, watching the drip like it was a countdown. Hank stood back, arms crossed, eyes fixed on that scraped ear. "There's something in there," he muttered. Dr. Hayes ran a gloved finger along the raw circle near the ear edge. The skin was rubbed thin, not torn by brush. It was the kind of damage made by metal and force. She took a small tool, lifted gently, and the room went still. A sliver of plastic appeared. Half a band, broken clean, with a faded code stamped into it. Hank leaned in, reading the numbers under his breath. His face tightened in a way Ethan didn't like. "That's not ranch gear," Hank said. "That's program ID." He pulled out his phone and made a call that didn't feel optional. While it rang, the calf's trunk twitched, then relaxed as the IV fluids began to do their quiet work. The answer came fast. Not from a person, but from a database and a tired voice on the other end. A transport convoy had been hit 2 nights ago on a back route. No press, no headlines, just a report filed and a search started. 1 adult elephant had gone down. A calf was missing. The code on the broken band matched the missing one. Ethan felt his throat close. He thought of the ATV engine, the wandering flashlight beams, the way the calf had pressed behind his tailgate like it had done it before. Maya's eyes filled, and she blinked hard like she could will the tears away. Dr. Hayes didn't look up. She just kept working, because heartbreak didn't change the steps. The next detail landed heavier. The adult, likely the mother, had been shot for ivory during the ambush, and the thieves had stripped what they wanted before vanishing into brush and dark. The calf had been on the ground when it happened, too small to fight, too young to understand, but old enough to remember sound and smell and sudden loss. Dr. Hayes spoke softly, almost to herself. "That explains the truck," she said. "Engines, vibration, fuel. It wasn't chasing you because it was curious. It was chasing the last thing that felt like staying with family." Ethan stared at his hands, the ones that had opened the door and started the engine again and again, and realized he'd been a lifeline by accident. The calf made it through the night. By morning, its breathing slowed, and the glassy look in its eyes began to clear. Maya sat beside the pen with a paper cup of coffee gone cold, letting the calf reach its trunk through the bars to touch her sleeve. Ethan came back after sunrise too, quieter than before, as if his presence might disturb something sacred. They named the calf Buddy, not because it was original, but because it was true. For a while, Buddy calmed most when the pickup idled nearby, so Ethan parked close and let the engine purr during feedings. Dr. Hayes warned him gently, "We'll wean that association." Ethan nodded, even though the idea felt like leaving all over again. A week later, they introduced Buddy to Rosie, an older orphan elephant who had learned to trust people without leaning on them. Rosie approached with careful curiosity, Trunk exploring Buddy's scent and posture. Buddy didn't flinch. He stepped closer, and Rosie nudged him with a slow, steady push that said, "You're not alone here." Days became weeks. Buddy gained weight, learned the rhythm of the enclosure, learned that food arrived even when the truck wasn't running. Ethan still visited, but less often, and always with purpose, not comfort. He watched Rosie guide Buddy toward water, toward shade, toward the small mud wallow that made Buddy squeal with something that sounded like laughter. 3 months later, Hank brought news that felt like a door cracking open. A wild herd had been tracked near a protected corridor, and genetic samples suggested a family link to Buddy's line. Dr. Hayes didn't promise miracles. She promised process. They moved Buddy to a soft-release pen near the herd's route and waited, the way you wait for a wary animal to decide the world is safe again. On the 4th morning, the matriarch arrived, an old female with scarred ears and calm eyes. She stood at the fence line, listening, while Buddy rumbled low in his throat, a sound too deep for his small body. Another adult female stepped closer, trunk lifting, making small, precise motions that looked like recognition. Hank whispered, "That one could be an ant." When the gate finally opened, Buddy didn't sprint. He walked out, slow and careful, then paused as trunks reached toward him like branches in a storm. He was touched, smelled, surrounded, and then accepted. Rosie stayed back, watching, and Ethan watched from farther still, his chest tight, letting the moment belong to elephants, not to him. As the herd moved into the mesquite and disappeared into green shadow, Ethan stood by his quiet pickup and listened to the fading rumbles. He understood it now, in a way he hadn't on that dusty road. They had thought it was cute, an animal chasing a truck like a joke. Then they saw the real reason he ran, not toward metal and headlights, but toward the last sound that meant he hadn't been left behind. If this story hit you in the heart, I want to hear from you. Comment 0 if you believe Ethan did the right thing by stopping. Comment 1 if you think most people would have kept driving. And if you made it all the way to the end, please subscribe and hit the like button, because the next story is even more unbelievable, and I don't want you to miss it.